The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive dome made of crystal and light. 12 different alien species sat in a perfect circle, each group looking very different from the others. The air hummed with excitement as the annual Survival Summit began. This was the one day each year when every species could show off how tough they were. Vex Calor stood up first. He was tall and looked like he was made of living glass that sparkled in the light. His people were called the Zephyrians, and they came from a world where lightning never stopped falling from the sky. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Our world has electrical storms every single day," Vex Calor said proudly. "The lightning strikes the ground 10,000 times each hour. Most beings would die in seconds on our planet, but we learn to live with it." He held up one of his crystal-like hands and let electricity dance across his fingers. Blue sparks jumped from finger to finger like tiny snakes made of light. The other aliens watched with respect and a little fear. Vex Calor smiled, which made his whole face glow brighter. "We changed our bodies over millions of years. Now the lightning does not hurt us. It makes us stronger. We eat electricity like other beings eat food. Our children play in thunderstorms. That would kill armies." The Zephyrian sat down, and General Thekmor stood up next. He was huge and covered in thick gray plates that looked like stone armor. His people were the Corvins, and they looked like walking tanks with 4 powerful arms and legs as thick as tree trunks. "Your lightning is nothing," General Thekmor said in a voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. "Our world has gravity 8 times stronger than most planets. The air itself tries to crush you flat. Every step is like carrying a mountain on your back." He picked up a metal bar that was meant to be decoration and bent it into a pretzel with just his fingers. The metal screamed as it twisted. Some of the smaller aliens moved back in their seats. We grew strong because we had to be strong. Our bones are solid metal. Our muscles are like steel cables. A Corvin child could lift what your strongest warriors cannot move. We do not fear anything that cannot crush us completely. General Thekmor threw the twisted metal aside and sat down with a thud that made the whole platform shake. Next came Flow Singer Alneth, who looked like a living wave of water with tentacles that never stopped moving. Her people were the Narrans, and they lived in oceans so deep that the pressure would turn most beings into paste. "The depths of our world would kill you before you could even scream," Flow Singer Alneth said. Her voice bubbled and flowed like water running over stones. "We live where the pressure is 1,000 times what you feel up here. The water is full of acids that eat through metal. Poison clouds float through our cities." She held up a small bottle filled with green liquid that seemed to glow with its own light. "This is just normal water from our world. 1 drop would burn through your skin and kill you in minutes. But we drink it like you drink clean water. We have 3 hearts and 5 stomachs. If one part of our body gets hurt, the others keep us alive." One by one, each alien species told their story. The thermal Kresh lived inside active volcanoes where the air itself was on fire. The Void Dancers came from a world with no atmosphere, where they had to create their own air to breathe. The Razor Claws evolved on a planet where everything was made of sharp crystal that could cut through anything. Each story was more amazing than the last. The aliens showed off their special abilities, their tough bodies, and their incredible worlds. They had all survived things that would be impossible for most beings to even imagine. The hall filled with the sounds of impressed clicks, whistles, and roars as each species tried to top the others. But then the mood changed. A small, floating robot entered the hall carrying a message crystal. It flew to the center of the circle and projected a hologram of official council documents. The robot spoke in a flat, mechanical voice. New membership application received. Species designation, human. Planet designation, Earth. Solar system designation, Sol. Request immediate review for council admission. The aliens looked around at each other with confusion. None of them had heard of humans before. Vex Collar touched the message crystal with one sparkling finger, and information about Earth appeared in the air above them. What they saw made them start to laugh. Earth looked like a paradise world. It had blue oceans and green lands. White clouds drifted across the surface like cotton. It had one small moon that kept everything stable. The temperature was always moderate. There were no constant storms, no crushing gravity, no acid oceans. This must be a mistake, General Feckmore said, laughing so hard that his armor plates rattled. This world looks like a vacation spot. What kind of soft creatures could come from such an easy place? Flo Singer. Almeth's tentacles wiggled with amusement. Look at their gravity. It is so weak that we could jump over their mountains. And their water is so pure and simple. There are no real challenges here at all. The thermal creche representative made a sound like steam escaping from a kettle. Their hottest places are cooler than our children's nurseries. Their coldest places are warmer than our summer homes. How could anything tough come from such a gentle world? More laughter filled the hall. Some aliens started making jokes about humans being pets, or maybe some kind of entertainment. Others wondered if this was all some kind of elaborate prank, but the council rules were clear. Any species that asked for membership had the right to present their case, even if those species came from soft, easy worlds where nothing interesting ever happened. Vex Collar stood up again and called for order. The humans will arrive in 3 days. We will hear what they have to say. Then we can all have a good laugh and send them home to their gentle paradise. The other aliens agreed. It would be fun to see what these weak creatures thought they could teach the survivors of true Deathworlds. Maybe they could share some recipes for growing pretty flowers or tips for taking relaxing naps in the sunshine. The council members began to place bets on how quickly the humans would give up and go home. Most thought it would take less than an hour once they saw what real survivors looked like. None of them could imagine that they were about to learn something that would change everything they thought they knew about survival. 3 days later, a small ship arrived at the council station. It was not very big compared to the massive vessels that other species used. The ship had a simple design with clean lines and no fancy decorations. It looked practical and sturdy, like a tool that was built to work rather than to impress anyone. Captain Jake Morrison stepped out of the ship first. He was average height with brown hair and calm blue eyes. He wore a simple uniform that was navy blue with silver buttons. Behind him came Dr. Lisa Park, a woman with black hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She carried a bag full of scientific equipment and looked excited to be there. Commander Ryan Bell followed next. He was tall and had the straight posture of a soldier. His short blonde hair and serious expression made him look like someone who was used to dangerous situations. Last came Dr. Amy Carter, a woman with red hair and green eyes who kept looking around at everything with great interest. The 4 humans walked through the station hallways with wide eyes. They had never seen anything like the alien architecture before. The walls curved in impossible ways, and lights floated in the air without any support. Strange sounds echoed from all directions as different species talked in their own languages. "This is incredible," Dr. Park whispered to Jake. "Look at how they built this place. The engineering must be amazing." Jake nodded, but tried to keep his expression neutral. He knew they were being watched by security cameras and probably other devices he could not see. As the leader of the human delegation, he had to appear confident and professional. They reached the great hall where the council was waiting. The sight of 12 different alien species sitting in a circle was overwhelming. The humans had studied pictures and videos, but seeing the aliens in person was completely different. Vex's collar sparkled like a living diamond. General Thekmore looked like he could crush a car with his bare hands. Flowsinger Alneth moved like water given shape and thought. Each alien was stranger and more impressive than the last. "Welcome, humans," Vex Collar said, but his tone was not very welcoming. "We have heard that you wish to join our council. This is most interesting." Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you for agreeing to see us. We are honored to be here and hope to prove that humanity deserves a place among your great species." Some of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. General Thakmore looked down at the humans like they were insects that had wandered into his garden. "Tell us, little humans," General Thakmore rumbled. "What makes you think you belong here? You look so soft and weak. Where is your armor? Where are your natural weapons?" Dr. Park started to answer, but Flowsinger Alneth interrupted with a bubbling laugh. "Look at them. They have thin skin that would tear like paper. Only 2 eyes, only 1 heart, only 1 brain. How do they even survive their own world?" "Their world is not dangerous," said another alien voice. This came from Flame Dancer, Crix, whose body was made of living fire. "We have seen the images. Earth is like a nursery where children play safely." Commander Bell felt his jaw tighten, but Jake put a hand on his arm to keep him calm. They had expected this kind of reaction. "We understand your doubts," Jake said. "Carefully. Earth may look peaceful, but appearances can be deceiving. We would like the chance to show you what our world is really like." The aliens continued to ask questions, but most of them were meant to make the humans feel small and stupid. How did they breathe such thin air? Why did their bodies break so easily? What happened when they got cut or sick? Dr. Carter tried to explain that humans were very good at healing and adapting, but the aliens just laughed more. The razor claws clicked their crystal teeth together in amusement. The void dancers made whispering sounds that were their version of giggling. "Perhaps," Vex Collar said with mock kindness, "you have made a mistake. This council is for species that have survived true death worlds. Your Earth is clearly a paradise planet. There is no shame in being weak. Not everyone can be as strong as we are." The human delegation felt the weight of all those alien eyes looking down on them. Jake could see that his team was getting frustrated and embarrassed. Dr. Park's hands were clenched into fists. Commander Bell looked like he wanted to challenge General Thekmore to a fight right there, but Jake had been in difficult negotiations before. He knew that getting angry would only make things worse. Instead, he smiled and nodded politely. "You are right that we are different from you," Jake said, "but we believe that difference is what makes us valuable. We would like to request time to prepare a proper presentation. 1 day should be enough." The aliens looked at each other with surprise. They had expected the humans to give up or get angry. Instead, the humans were asking for a chance to prove themselves. "Very well," Vex Collar said after a moment. "You may have 1 standard day to prepare, but do not waste our time with tricks or lies. We have seen true survival, and we know the difference between strength and weakness." The humans bowed again and left the great hall. As they walked back toward their quarters, Jake could hear the aliens talking and laughing behind them. He caught a few words in different languages, but they all seemed to be making bets about how badly the humans would fail. "They think we are jokes," Commander Bell said quietly when they were alone in the hallway. "Good," Jake replied. "Let them think that. It will make our presentation more effective." "But Jake," Dr. Park said, "they are not completely wrong. Look at General Thakmore. He could probably tear me in half with his bare hands. And that flame dancer could melt us all just by getting too close." "They are physically stronger," Jake agreed. But that is not the only kind of strength. We just need to show them what they are missing. The humans spent the rest of the day in their assigned quarters, which were comfortable but clearly designed for guests who are not expected to stay long. They had brought their own food and water, which was lucky because the station's food systems were designed for alien biology. Jake sat at a small table with his team around him. They had papers and electronic devices spread out everywhere. The original presentation they had planned was useless now. They had focused on showing Earth's beauty and human achievements, but the aliens did not care about those things. We need to completely change our approach, Dr. Carter said. They think Earth is safe and boring. We need to show them that it is actually more dangerous than their worlds. But how? Dr. Park asked. Their worlds really are more extreme than ours. We cannot lie about that. Jake looked at the data they had collected about each alien species. Then he looked at the information about Earth that they had brought with them. Slowly, an idea began to form in his mind. We are not going to lie, Jake said. We are going to tell them the truth. But we are going to tell them the truth they have never thought about before. He stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the stars. They all evolved to survive one specific type of danger: high gravity, electrical storms, toxic water, crushing pressure. But what if the real challenge is not surviving one thing? What if the real challenge is surviving everything? The other humans looked at him with growing excitement as they began to understand what he meant. Earth is not a death world, Jake continued. It is something much worse. It is a world that looks safe while it tries to kill you in ways you never see coming. And we are going to show them exactly what that means. They worked through the night, rebuilding their entire presentation from scratch. By morning, they had something that would either earn them respect or get them laughed out of the galaxy. But Jake was confident they had found the right approach. Aliens thought they knew what survival meant. The humans were about to teach them that they had been thinking about it all wrong. The next day, the great hall was packed with aliens who had come to watch the humans fail. Word had spread throughout the station that the soft creatures from the Paradise world were going to try to impress the council. Many aliens had brought recording devices to capture the embarrassing moment for entertainment later. Jake walked to the center of the circle with his team behind him. He looked around at all the alien faces staring down at him. Some looked amused, others looked bored, and a few looked slightly annoyed that their time was being wasted. Honorable council members, Jake began in a clear, steady voice. You are absolutely right. Earth is not a death world. The aliens nodded and made satisfied sounds. This was what they had expected to hear. The humans were finally admitting that. It did not belong here. But then Jake smiled and said something that made everyone go quiet. Earth is something far worse than a death world. It is a world that appears safe while it constantly tries to kill you in ways you never see coming. Confused murmurs rippled through the hall. Vex Collar leaned forward, his crystal body catching the light. What do you mean by this strange statement? Dr. Carter stepped forward and activated a holographic projector. A beautiful image of Earth appeared above them, showing the blue oceans and green continents that looked so peaceful and inviting. What you see here is not the real Earth, Dr. Carter said. This is just the surface. The real Earth is a ball of molten rock that is barely contained by a thin shell of cooled stone. That shell is so thin that if Earth were the size of an apple, the crust would be thinner than the apple's skin. The image changed to show the inside of Earth. Glowing red magma swirled and moved like a living thing. The aliens could see how thin the solid ground really was compared to the burning interior. Under our feet right now, Dr. Carter continued, there is enough molten rock to melt every building, every mountain, every ocean on the surface. Sometimes it breaks through. We call these volcanoes. The hologram showed massive volcanic eruptions. Mountains exploded like bombs, throwing rocks the size of buildings into the air. Rivers of lava flowed across the land, destroying everything in their path. Clouds of ash blocked out the sun for months at a time. The Yellowstone supervolcano in North America contains enough explosive power to end human civilization, Dr. Carter explained. It has erupted before, and it will erupt again. We do not know when. We just know that it will happen. General Thacmore shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His world had high gravity, but at least the ground stayed where it was supposed to be. Presentation continued with earthquakes. The aliens watched in shock as cities shook apart in minutes. Roads cracked open like giant mouths. Buildings that had stood for hundreds of years collapsed into piles of rubble. The ground moves without warning, Dr. Carter said. We build our cities knowing that the earth beneath them might shift at any moment. We have learned to build structures. That can bend and sway, but sometimes that is not enough. Flow Singer Alneth's tentacles stopped moving. Her people lived in dangerous waters, but at least they knew the water was dangerous. These humans lived on land that could betray them at any second. The images changed again to show tsunamis. Walls of water taller than skyscrapers crashed into coastal cities. The aliens watched in horror as entire towns disappeared under the waves in minutes. The ocean can reach hundreds of miles inland, Dr. Carter explained. There is no warning except a few minutes when the water pulls back from the shore. People see fish flopping on the empty sea floor and think it is strange. Then the wave comes. Dr. Park took over the presentation next. Her part was about the life forms that shared Earth with humans. The aliens expected to see gentle creatures living in harmony with their environment. Instead, they saw something that made them question everything they thought they knew about survival. Every living thing on Earth is at war with every other. Living thing, Dr. Park began. There are no safe spaces. There are no truces. Everything is either hunting or being hunted, and most things are doing both at the same time. She showed microscopic images of bacteria and viruses. To the aliens, they looked like tiny monsters with spikes and claws and strange shapes. These are smaller than the smallest thing you can see, Dr. Park explained. They are inside the air. You breathe, the water you drink, the food you eat. Some of them can kill you in hours. Others kill you slowly over years. A few can even take control of your mind and make you do things you would never choose to do. The thermal crush representative made a nervous clicking sound. Living in fire was dangerous, but at least fire was something you could see and avoid. We cannot see these enemies, Dr. Park continued. We cannot fight them with weapons. We can only hope our bodies are strong enough to defeat them. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they are not. We never know until it is too late. She showed larger predators next. Great white sharks with rows of razor teeth. Saltwater crocodiles that could crush a human in half with one bite. Polar bears that could run faster than a human and were strong enough to break through ice. These creatures evolved to kill, Dr. Park said. They are perfect hunters with senses we cannot match and weapons we cannot duplicate. Humans have no claws, no fangs, no armor, no poison. We are slow and weak compared to most of the animals on our world. Then how do you survive? Vexcaller asked, his voice filled with genuine curiosity now. We learn to think, Dr. Park replied. We learn to use tools. We learn to work together. We learn to be more dangerous than the things that wanted to kill us. The presentation moved to plants, and this was where the aliens truly began to understand how different Earth was from their worlds. Dr. Park showed beautiful flowers and lush forests, but then explained what they really were. Plants on Earth are not passive, she said. They fight back against anything that tries to eat them. They make poisons that can kill you. They grow thorns that can cut you. They produce chemicals that make you sick or drive you crazy. She showed images of poisonous mushrooms, deadly nightshade, and trees that could cause painful rashes just by touching them. We learned to farm these plants, Dr. Park continued. We took our enemies prisoner and forced them to feed us. We bred them to be less dangerous, but they still try to kill us. Every fruit, every vegetable, every grain contains some level of toxins that our bodies have to process. Commander Bell stepped forward for the final part of the presentation. He had been quiet until now, but when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who had seen real danger. Earth's weather can kill without warning, he said. Tornadoes can appear in minutes and destroy entire cities. Hurricanes can flood thousands of square miles. Blizzards can freeze you solid in hours. Heat waves can kill you just by stepping outside. He showed footage of extreme weather events. The aliens watched tornadoes that looked like giants spinning, knives cutting through the landscape. They saw hurricanes that covered areas larger than some of their home planets. They saw lightning storms that made the Zephyrian electrical displays look like tiny sparks. We do not just survive these things, Commander Bell said. We study them. We learn to predict them. We build shelters and warning systems. We actually fly aircraft into hurricanes to measure them and understand them better. The hall was completely silent now. Even the aliens who had been making jokes earlier were staring at the images with respect and growing fear. Jake stepped forward for the final statement. He looked around at all the alien faces, seeing confusion and a new kind of understanding in their eyes. You each evolved to survive one specific type of danger, Jake said. Your worlds threw one great challenge at you, and you adapted to meet it. You became specialists, perfectly suited for your environment. He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed a rotating image of Earth in all its deceptive beauty. Earth never gave us that luxury. It never focused on just one way, to kill us. Instead, it kept trying new things. Earthquakes, volcanoes, diseases, predators, poisonous plants, extreme weather, cosmic radiation, asteroid impacts, ice ages, and things we have not even discovered yet. Jake's voice grew stronger as he continued. We could not become specialists, because the challenges kept changing. We had to become generalists. We had to learn to adapt to anything, to survive everything, to never stop learning and growing and changing. He looked directly at each council member as he spoke his final words. We did not conquer our world. We learned to dance with it. And that dance made us stronger than any single adaptation ever could. We are not the toughest species in the galaxy. We are not the strongest or the fastest or the most resistant to any one type of danger. Jake smiled, and for the first time, it was a smile that made some of the aliens feel nervous. But we are the most adaptable. We are the ones who learn to survive everything. And in a galaxy full of unknown dangers, that might just make us the most valuable allies you could ever have. The Great Hall remained silent for a long moment as the aliens processed what they had just learned. Earth was not the paradise they had imagined. It was something far more terrifying and impressive than any of their specialized Deathworlds. Was a world that never stopped trying to kill its children, and somehow those children had learned to love the challenge. The Great Hall stayed quiet for what felt like hours after Jake finished speaking. The aliens looked at each other in stunned silence. Each test had been designed to be impossible for any species, except the one that had evolved specifically for that challenge. Yet the humans had not only survived each test, they had found completely different ways to succeed. The Zephyrians had evolved crystal bodies that could conduct electricity safely. The humans had used knowledge and movement to avoid electrical danger entirely. The Corvins had developed dense bones and powerful muscles to handle crushing gravity. The humans had used mental discipline and training to push through physical limitations. The Nerids had grown multiple organ systems to survive toxic water. The humans had used tools and protective equipment to create artificial adaptations. The psychological test was the most shocking result of all. Every other species had developed some form of mental protection against despair. The thermal creche had evolved to feel no fear. The void dancers had developed the hive mind that shared emotional burdens. The razor claws had simply removed most emotions from their psychology. The humans had kept all their emotions, all their fears, all their knowledge of mortality and danger. They had looked directly at the possibility of extinction and had chosen to keep hoping anyway. To the aliens, this seemed like the most impossible adaptation of all. Vex Color was the first to speak. His crystal body was dim now, no longer sparkling with electricity. "You did not succeed the way we expected," he said slowly. "You did not become stronger or tougher or more resistant. You became ... different." "We became adaptable," Jake replied. "That was always our strength. We do not try to become perfect for one situation. We try to become flexible enough to handle any situation." General Thakmore shifted uncomfortably in his massive armor. For the first time in his life, he was beginning to understand that strength was not just about muscles and bones. "Your species learns faster than ours," he admitted. "When we face a new challenge, we need generations to adapt. You adapt within minutes or hours." Flow Singer Owlneth's tentacles moved in patterns that showed deep thought. "We have made ourselves perfect for our environments," she said. "But what happens when our environments change? What happens when we face new dangers that we have never seen before?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Each alien species had spent millions of years becoming perfectly adapted to their homeworlds. But that specialization had also made them rigid and inflexible. They were like master craftsmen who could only use one tool, while humans were like inventors who could build new tools for every problem. Flame Dancer Crix spoke next, his fiery body flickering with uncertainty. "We have always measured survival by how well a species can handle their homeworld conditions. But you are saying that true survival is measured by how well a species can handle unknown conditions." "Exactly," Dr. Park said, still treating her chemical burns but speaking with enthusiasm. "The galaxy is huge and full of surprises. No matter how tough you are, sooner or later you will face something that your evolution did not prepare you for. When that happens, what matters is not how strong you are, but how quickly you can learn and adapt." The aliens began to realize the implications of what they had just witnessed. For centuries, they had been competing to see who was the most specialized, the most perfectly adapted to extreme conditions. But they had been thinking about survival. All wrong. Dr. Carter, still shaken from her psychological test, but speaking with quiet conviction, offered a new perspective. "Each of your species is incredibly impressive," she said. "You have achieved things that humans never could, but you achieve them by becoming specialists. That specialization is both your greatest strength and your greatest weakness." She gestured to the testing chambers around them. "You can survive conditions that would kill us easily, but we can survive changes that might destroy you completely. If your homeworlds were altered by cosmic events, by climate change, by invasion, by any of 1,000 possible disasters, how well would your perfect adaptations serve you then?" The question was uncomfortable because they all knew the answer. The Zephyrians would die without their electrical storms. The Corvins would be helpless in low gravity. The Nerids could not survive in clean water. Each species had traded flexibility for perfection, and now they were beginning to see the cost of that trade. Commander Bell, still exhausted from his gravity test, but standing proud, made the final point that changed everything. "We are not asking you to become like us," he said. We are offering to teach you what we have learned about adaptation and flexibility. And we are hoping you will teach us what you know about specialization and perfection. Together, Jake added, we could create something stronger than any of us could achieve alone. Specialists and generalists, working together to face whatever challenges the galaxy might throw at us. The aliens looked around at each other, seeing their fellow council members with new eyes. For the first time, they began to understand that their differences might be sources of strength rather than just reasons for competition. The testing had proven something that none of them had expected. The humans were not weak creatures from a paradise world. They were survivors who had learned to thrive in chaos and uncertainty. And in a universe full of unknown dangers, that might be the most valuable skill of all, with expressions that ranged from confusion to fear to something that might have been respect. Finally, Vexcaller stood up, his crystal body reflecting the lights in sharp, angry patterns. Words are easy to say, Vexcaller declared, his voice ringing like breaking glass. Anyone can tell stories and show pictures. But we have lived our truths. We have survived our trials. If you want to prove that humans are worthy of joining this council, you must do more than talk. General Thakmor slammed one of his massive fists on the armrest of his chair, making a sound like a boulder hitting the ground. Yes, prove it. Show us that you can actually survive what we have survived. Show us that you are not just telling pretty stories. Flow Singer Alneth's tentacles writhed with excitement. We have testing chambers here on the station. Each of our species had to prove themselves when they first joined the council. If the humans want to be members, they must pass the same tests. Jake looked at his team. This was not what they had planned for, but he could see the determination in their eyes. Dr. Park nodded slightly. Commander Bell stood straighter, like a soldier accepting a mission. Dr. Carter took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. We accept your challenge, Jake said. What do you want us to do? The aliens spent the next hour setting up the tests. They had special chambers on the station that could simulate the conditions of each species' homeworld. These chambers were designed to be deadly to anyone who was not adapted for those specific conditions. Vexcaller went first. He led Jake to a room that looked like the inside of a thundercloud. Electrical equipment lined the walls, and the air itself seemed to buzz with energy. Lightning rods stuck out from the floor and ceiling like metal trees. This chamber creates the electrical storms of my homeworld, Vexcaller explained. The lightning strikes constantly. The electrical field is strong enough to stop most hearts. Even touching the walls will kill most beings instantly. Jake looked into the chamber and saw electricity dancing between the metal rods. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. He could feel the hair on his arms, standing up just from being near the doorway. How long do I need to stay inside? Jake asked. 10 minutes, Vexcaller replied. If you can survive 10 minutes. In there, you will have proven that humans can handle electrical danger. Jake nodded and stepped into the chamber. The door sealed behind him with a hiss. Immediately, lightning began striking all around him. The air smelled like burned metal and ozone. His skin tingled, and he could feel his heart beating faster. But Jake did not panic. He remembered his basic training about electrical safety. He stayed away from the metal rods and kept his feet close together to avoid creating a path for the electricity to travel through his body. When lightning struck near him, he crouched low and waited for it to pass. The aliens watched through a window, expecting to see Jake collapse or run screaming for the exit. Instead, they saw him moving calmly through the chamber, avoiding the worst of the electrical strikes by using simple knowledge and common sense. He is not being hurt, one of the Zephyrian technicians said in amazement. The lightning is missing him, but not by accident. He is making it miss him. Jake emerged from the chamber after 10 minutes, his hair standing up and his clothes singed, but he was smiling. Vex Collar stared at him with something that might have been respect. "How did you do that?" Vex Collar asked. "Humans have been dealing with lightning for thousands of years," Jake replied. "We learned to understand it, to predict it, and to avoid it. You adapted your bodies to absorb electrical energy. We adapted our minds to work around it." General Thekmore was next. He led Commander Bell to a chamber that looked like the inside of a crushing machine. The walls, floor, and ceiling were all made of heavy metal plates that could move to create different levels of gravitational force. "This chamber simulates the gravity of my homeworld," General Thekmore explained. 8 times the gravity you are used to. Your bones will feel like they are being crushed. Your muscles will not be asterisk. The council chamber was different now. The same. Aliens sat in the same circle, but the atmosphere had completely changed. Where there had been arrogance and competition before, now there was thoughtful silence and careful consideration. The humans had not just passed their tests. They had fundamentally changed how everyone thought about survival. Vex Collar stood up first, but his movements were slower and more deliberate than before. His crystal body still sparkled, but the light seemed softer somehow, less aggressive, and more contemplative. "We need to talk," Vex Collar said to his fellow council members. "What we have seen today changes everything we thought we knew about strength and survival." The aliens agreed to convene in emergency session. The humans were asked to wait in their quarters while the council deliberated. Jake and his team spent the time reviewing what had happened and trying to guess what the aliens might decide. "Do you think we convinced them?" Dr. Park asked, applying fresh bandages to her chemical burns. "I think we confused them," Commander Bell replied, still feeling sore from his gravity test. "Which might be even better than convincing them." The council session lasted for hours. Through the walls, the humans could hear raised voices in various alien languages. Sometimes the sounds were angry, sometimes they were excited, and sometimes they were just confused. It was clear that the aliens were having the biggest debate of their lives. Finally, the humans were called back to the Great Hall. When they entered, they saw that the aliens had rearranged themselves. Instead of sitting in their usual species groups, they were mixed together in ways that had never happened before. Zephyrians sat next to Corvins. Nerids were positioned near Thermal Kresh. The careful divisions that had always existed were breaking down. General Thekmore spoke first, and his voice was humble in a way that shocked everyone who knew him. "I have been thinking about strength for my entire life," he said. "I believed that the strongest species was the one that could survive the most extreme conditions. I was proud that my people could endure gravity that would crush others." He paused and looked directly at Commander Bell. "But you have shown me something I never considered. True strength is not about surviving one specific challenge. True strength is about surviving challenges that you have never faced before." The massive aliens stood up and bowed deeply to the human delegation. "My people have become so specialized for high gravity that we struggle with change. When we face new problems, we try to solve them with more strength, more weight, more force. You have taught me that sometimes the answer is not to push harder, but to think differently." Flow Singer Alneth spoke next, her tentacles moving in, graceful patterns that showed deep respect. "For millions of years, my people have been proud of our immunity to toxins and our ability to survive in poisonous waters. We thought this made us superior to species with weaker constitutions." She gestured toward Dr. Park with obvious admiration. "But you have shown us that immunity is only one solution to the problem of toxins. Prevention, protection, treatment, and adaptation are other solutions that we never considered. Our immunity made us confident, but it also made us rigid. We never learned to think around problems because we never needed to." Flame dancer cricks flickered with colors that indicated excitement and wonder. My people evolved to live in fire and extreme heat. We thought this made us the ultimate survivors, because we could exist in conditions that would instantly kill most beings. The living flame paused, dimming slightly. But what happens when we encounter cold? What happens when we face problems that cannot be solved with heat resistance? You humans have shown us that the most dangerous enemy is not the one you can see and prepare for. The most dangerous enemy is the one you never expected to meet. One by one, each alien species made similar admissions. The Void Dancers realized that their adaptation to airless space made them vulnerable to atmospheric changes. The Razor Claws understood that their crystal armor was useless against threats that could not be cut or stabbed. The Thermal Kresh saw that their immunity to heat left them helpless against cold-based attacks. Every species had the same realization. Their greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. Vex Collar stood again and addressed the human delegation. Directly, "We have made a decision," he announced. "Not only will humanity be granted membership in this council, but we are restructuring the entire organization." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. This was more than they had dared to hope for. "From this day forward," Vex Collar continued, "this will no longer be called the Survival Council. It will be called the Adaptation Council. Our mission will not be to compete over who is the most specialized. Our mission will be to learn from each other and to prepare for challenges that none of us have faced before." The chamber erupted in sounds of agreement from all the alien species. Clicks, whistles, roars, and bubbling noises blended together in a harmony that had never existed before. General Thekmore stepped forward with an announcement that amazed everyone. "We would like humanity to take the leadership role in this new organization. Not because you are the strongest or the toughest, but because you have mastered the art of adaptation itself." Jake felt overwhelmed by the honor, but also by the responsibility. "We accept," he said, "but only if we can work together as equals. We have much to learn from each of you, just as you have things to learn from us." The months that followed brought changes that no one had anticipated. A new adaptation council established research stations throughout the galaxy where different species could study and learn from each other. Zephyrians learned human techniques for electrical safety and began developing new technologies that combined their natural conductivity with human innovation. Corvins started training with human military instructors, learning that mental toughness could be just as important as physical strength. The most ambitious project was the establishment of the Human Survival Institute on Earth itself. For the first time in galactic history, alien species sent their young people to train on another species. Homeworld. Dr. Park led the first group of alien cadets through the Amazon rainforest. Watching Zephyrian crystals learn to navigate humidity, seeing Corvin armor adapted for jungle warfare, and observing Nerid tentacles figure out how to climb trees was both educational and entertaining. "The point is not to make you exactly like humans," Dr. Park explained to her mixed group of alien students as they set up camp near a river. "The point is to teach you how humans think when we face the unknown." Commander Bell took another group to the Arctic, where they learned survival techniques for extreme cold. The Thermal Kresh students struggled the most, having never experienced temperatures below the boiling point of water. But they also learned the most, discovering that adaptation was possible even for beings who seemed perfectly specialized. Dr. Carter led geology expeditions to active volcanic zones and earthquake areas. Her students learned to read the warning signs of geological disasters and to prepare for events that could not be predicted or prevented. But the most important lessons happened in the psychology courses that Dr. Carter developed based on her experience with the fear simulation. Alien students learned human techniques for dealing with uncertainty, for finding hope in desperate situations, and for continuing to function when facing the possibility of failure or death. The secret, Dr. Carter told a class of mixed alien students, is not to eliminate fear or uncertainty. The secret is to accept them as part of life and to keep moving forward anyway. The program was so successful that other species began requesting similar exchanges. Humans started training on alien worlds, learning specialized techniques that could be adapted for Earth conditions. Human engineers studied Zephyrian electrical systems. Human doctors learned Nereid techniques for treating chemical poisoning. Human soldiers trained with Corvin. Instructors to build mental and physical toughness. Jake found himself traveling constantly between different worlds and space stations, coordinating the new alliance and helping to solve problems that required multiple perspectives. The work was challenging, but it was also incredibly rewarding. 1 year after the first presentation to the council, Jake stood in the same great hall where it had all begun. But now the chamber was filled with humans and aliens working together on joint projects. Species that had never spoken to each other before were collaborating on research and exploration. Vex Kaller approached Jake with what might have been a smile on his crystalline features. "Do you ever regret coming here?" The alien asked. "Your lives have become much more complicated since you joined us." Jake looked around at the bustling activity in the hall. He saw human children playing with alien youngsters, learning each other's languages and games. He saw scientists from a dozen species working together to solve problems that none of them could handle alone. He saw the beginning of something that might grow into the strongest alliance the galaxy had ever known. "No regrets," Jake replied with a smile of his own. "This is exactly what humanity was meant to do. We were meant to adapt, to explore, to learn, and to help others do the same." Dr. Park broke